According to people who have been watching this whole thing closely, Meghan Markle might have entered the royal family not just as a bride, but as a woman on a mission. A mission that started way before she even knew Harry. A mission that might have been inspired by someone she never even met, Princess Diana. Because the story you're about to hear isn't just about love. This is a story about timing, about who you are, about a prince who was hurting and a woman who supposedly knew exactly how to use that hurt to get what she wanted. So today we're going back to the beginning. Before Meghan, before the wedding, before all the headlines, to the part of the story nobody was supposed to see, the planning stage. Way before Harry ever noticed Meghan, way before the royal engagement, way before the world knew her name, there was Princess Diana, the most photographed woman on the planet. She was loved, admired, and remembered as the people's princess. And according to what people keep saying and noticing, Meghan didn't just admire Diana, she studied her, not just casually, not just a little bit, but really intensely. Sources say it was years, maybe even decades, of watching Diana's interviews, her hand movements, her body language, and even how she showed emotions. The way Diana looked shyly at the camera, the way she blinked softly, almost like she was delicate and gentle, the way she touched her chest when she talked, the way she laughed in a soft, innocent way. These weren't just random things. They were patterns. And according to what people are saying, Meghan soaked them up like she was learning lines from a script. What makes this even more creepy is that there's no sign of these behaviors in her earlier public appearances. In her Suits interviews, her deal or no deal moments, and her early red carpet clips, none of the Diana-like mannerisms were there. No big doe eyes, no shy blinking, no soft giggle. It was a totally different woman. But the second Meghan got into Harry's world, everything changed. And if this was just getting inspired, fine. But the timing, how intense it was, and how suddenly it appeared suggests something way more planned out. A study, a blueprint, a role she was getting ready to play. And the role was Princess Diana. For years, this studying seemed far away, just being a fan. But then came the big turning point. The moment Meghan realized she actually had a real way into the royal world. A moment connected to one person, Prince Harry. The prince who had lost his mom in a tragic way. The prince who grew up hurt by all the world's attention. The prince who insiders describe as emotionally damaged and really vulnerable. And according to what people claim, that's when Meghan supposedly changed her approach. The studying phase ended and the actual doing began. She didn't just reach out to any prince, she reached out to the right prince, the one whose emotional scars made him easier to connect with, easier to influence, and easier to pull in close. This wasn't just some random romance. It was a moment of opportunity. People close to the situation suggest Meghan saw Harry's pain as a way in. His grief, his insecurity, his lifelong search for someone who got him. And supposedly she positioned herself as that person. Not by accident, but on purpose. And from that point forward, her behavior started lining up with Diana's image almost perfectly, like she knew exactly what would touch Harry's heart. This wasn't admiration anymore. This was a plan being put into action. By the time Meghan fully stepped into Harry's life, the pieces were already lined up in a way that seemed almost too perfect. On one side was Meghan, someone who had spent years on TV sets, learning scripts, perfecting expressions, and understanding how to show emotion on cue. Acting wasn't just her job. It was her skill set, her toolkit, her training. On the other side was Harry, a guy who had lived through trauma most people can't imagine. He lost his mom when he was only 12 years old. He grew up inside a spotlight he never wanted. He dealt with pressure, grief, and loneliness. And according to royal watchers, he carried deep emotional wounds that never really healed. This combination wasn't equal. It was one-sided. She had performance experience. He had emotional vulnerability. She knew how to change her persona. He was looking for comfort and validation. And according to claims from people who watched how they were together early on, Meghan didn't just enter his world. She filled an empty space. She talked softly. She acted understanding. She reflected emotions back. She became what Harry needed at that fragile moment. Not by accident, but with precision. As one insider said, Harry wasn't just falling in love. He was falling into a role Meghan had already set up. In his eyes, she seemed caring, supportive, gentle, maybe even similar to the warmth he once saw in his mother. But in her eyes, according to the claims, this connection was power. Because once you control someone's emotions, you control their choices. And that's where the story takes a turn. As the relationship got deeper, something started to shift, quietly at first, then more obviously. Harry, once known for his sense of humor, independence, and bold personality, seemed to disappear into the background. According to sources who know their dynamic, he started only doing what Meghan wanted. He seemed more quiet, more careful, more obedient. Little by little, his world shrunk down to her world. There were claims that Meghan directed how he acted, where he went, and even how he interacted in public. People watching pointed out disturbing moments like Meghan physically guiding Harry during a kiss, pulling him down to her timing and her angle, almost like she was controlling the moment for the cameras. Small details, yeah, but small details turn into big patterns. According to people close to the situation, Harry stopped standing up for himself. He stopped making decisions on his own. He stopped showing the personality he used to have. It was like the prince who grew up in the world's spotlight had become a quiet shadow next to her. And Meghan, she stood front and center. If she wanted him gone for a week, he left. If she wanted him next to her, he showed up. If she wanted him quiet, he stayed quiet. This wasn't a partnership. This was control. And the more she guided, the more he obeyed. The prince wasn't leading the story anymore. He was following it. As Meghan's public image got harder to manage, her relationship with the royal family took a darker turn. Instead of showing thankfulness for the huge wedding, the worldwide attention, and the royal platform, she started criticizing the very institution that lifted her up. She complained about her $32 million wedding. She claimed she wasn't allowed her passport, even though records show she traveled multiple times during that time.
She spoke harshly about members of the family, including the late Queen. It wasn't gentle disagreement. It was open attack. According to people watching closely, Meghan seemed less interested in protecting the monarchy and more interested in positioning herself against it as the misunderstood victim, the mistreated outsider, the hero of her own story. Her behavior became destructive, dismissing traditions, breaking protocols, and ignoring expectations that every royal before her had respected. Default text: it wasn't imitation anymore. It was rebellion. And as she pulled away from the royal family, she pulled Harry with her, away from his brother, away from his duties, away from the life he'd always known. The woman who once studied the royal world from far away was now tearing pieces of it down from the inside. Not quietly, not carefully, but boldly. The admiration of the crown had turned into opposition. Default text: the student had become the troublemaker. And now we get to the part of the story that makes the room go silent. After years of studying Diana, after transforming her identity, after winning Harry's heart, after claiming the title, after stepping into the spotlight, a creepy theory comes up, one whispered behind royal walls and repeated by people who watch the journey unfold. What if Harry was never the destination, but just the doorway? Default text: think about it. A damaged prince, a powerful title, a global platform, a name recognized in every country on earth. To the world, it looked like marriage. But to some, it looked like strategy. Because once Meghan secured the life next to the crown, once she became a duchess, once she gained fame, reach, and influence, Harry started to fade into the background. Default text: he stopped leading. He stopped speaking. He stopped shining. And Meghan stepped forward. More visible, more branded, more individually focused than ever before. It raises a final chilling possibility. Maybe the goal was never to love a prince, but to use a prince to climb, to rise, to replace, just like Diana once captivated the world. Meghan may have believed she could step into that same space, not as a successor. Default text: but as a new icon crafted and created by her own design. But here's the twist. If Harry was the latter, what happens once the top is reached? What happens when the prince who made the rise possible is no longer useful to the plan? Does he stay? Does he fall away? Does he become a forgotten chapter? Nobody knows yet because this story isn't over. The cracks are showing.
Default text: a mask is slipping. The plan, if there ever was one, is entering a dangerous stage. And somewhere in the shadows of this royal tale, One question hangs heavier than all the rest. Was Harry the love of her life or the greatest prop and the biggest performance the royal world has ever seen? And as the cameras keep rolling, the world waits because the final act may still be coming.